because that was a crazy time when we lived back in the 2020s and we thought that somehow hunger, like it was crazy. We knew how to solve it. We just hadn't had the will to do it. And so now it's 2030 and we've changed the arc of history. We have created food abundance for all. Hunger is literally something that belongs to history museums. So congratulations. Can we all take a moment? Let's give ourselves a round of applause. So, such a pleasure to be here with you. I am a huge fan. I have served with my dear brother David and Nikki in Rio. I've served food there, and I've been a long supporter of the social gastronomy movement. It is such a joy to be here with you today on World Food Day. As Nikki shared, my name is Lucian Tanowski, and I'm a founding ambassador at the United Planet. And we basically, it says it in the name, we're really about a story that unites the planet by 2030. And the way we do that is we focus on the people, the places, and the play. The people are those of us on this call that are loyal first to the planet and then to whatever country we come from or whatever city. These united planetarians. The second thing, the places. We're looking to light up lighthouses all around the world, which are places where we gather, places where we break bread together, places where we create celebrations together of the future that we're going to create, where we create ritual, where we tell stories of the ways we transform this world, the way we raise the bar of what the planet is aiming towards. And then finally, the play. Nikki and a number of people here have been part of the United Planet game, UP game for short. And what we've been doing is really looking at system transformation, how we turn that into a sport. Because delivering on this golden decade should be the greatest Olympic sport ever. We should have Olympic athletes empowered fully with the resources they need to deliver on the change we need to deliver. Because quite literally, this is the greatest opportunity in the history of the planet to transform every aspect of the system so that it works for all of us. So what we do is we gather teams of 12. We have a league, which is made up of 16 different leagues, one for each SDG. And we're rolling out these leagues through the year and inviting teams of 12 to come together to apply their collective intelligence over 6-hour periods to transform the world. And on Harvest Day, on the 21st of September, we came together and we celebrated the launch of the league around Zero Hunger. We call the league Food Abundance because hunger is, why do we even use that word? That word should be abolished from history. This is about food abundance, not zero hunger. This is about food abundance. And so that's the name of the league. And we are kicking it off today with this celebration where we're inviting you to tell your story from 2030. How did we do it? What happened? Let's spell the future we wish to see. And a little bit of history before we kick off on this. The way this began, it's the most awesome origin story. James Webb ran NASA through the Apollo programs, and he was a total Jedi. He responded to JFK's famous speech in 1961, where JFK said, by the end of the decade, we're going to put a man on the moon and bring him safely back to Earth. James Webb knew that we didn't know how to put a man on the moon. So what did he do? He gathered the brightest minds from across America to come together for a celebration of landing on the moon in 1961. Think about that. You enter the room of the smartest room you've ever been in, and you're invited to bend the arc of history. That's what we're doing today. We're saying exactly how this decade is going to play out. We are together creating this concept called hyperstition, when a group of people start to share a worldview about how something happens, how we create something. they actually, scientifically proven, create the feedback loops that accelerate us towards that outcome. So it's never been so important to mind what you think, to mind what you believe, to believe in a positive narrative of the future, one where hunger is something of the past. So it's with that said that I invite you to come and step in as yourself. I invite you to embody the consciousness that you wish to have after 10 years of profound personal development. The world has completely shifted. We've created a united planet. We've created a planetary civilization. We've addressed the SDGs. Let's tell stories from there. And the beautiful thing that happens when we expand the horizon, when we expand the spectrum of possibility, of possible choices we can make, collectively we make better choices. So that's what's going on here. We're literally painting, we're using each other's creative storytelling to paint the story of the future and then make choices from that place. So with that said, I would love, it's my honor, to kick this 2030 celebration off with our very own Nikki to time port us into 2030 and tell us how it happened. Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you, everyone. And we made it, 2030. We're here together, and 2020, I remember well, it was World Food Day, marked a very special moment. We finally started to connect to each other, to connect between sectors, to connect to Earth and our souls. We started to collaborate. We started to build bridges, and we started to build tables and not walls. We started to build those bridges. And we started to partner, real partnerships, going from an ecosystem to an ecosystem. We started to giving a voice and making those that are at the forefront, those that are suffering right now and need our help, we made them the heroes of their own stories. We tapped into the collective intelligence of the group, of this network, of the social gastronomy movement. And so this was a starting point and got us to where we are, to a world with food abundance, with good food for everyone. And it was not about the destination, it was about the journey as well. The last 10 years have been a beautiful journey on growing together as people, as one nation, as a collective. And so I'm so honored and excited to raise my glass to this, you can't see it, to this special moment of celebrating food for all. So thank you, because every single one that's here as well today made a difference 10 years ago on World Food Day 2020.
Go, Nikki. Thank you for being such a captain of the movement, of delivering on this transition, delivering this celebration. Thank you, Nikki. We all salute you. Thank you. And your leadership.
Thank you, Lucien.
So next up, David Hertz.
I think David told me he's just jumping on a car. So if I can already go back to another table guest, I know we want to go back to our table.
Go next, Nikki.
So I would love to go to the Philippines and how we reached 2030 today, the celebration. Sherry.
Wow. 2030, I see a lot of bees coming back to the farm. You know, I see a lot of butterflies enjoying all the flowers. I see a lot of farmers producing food from healthy soil. I see a lot of government people that are talking about that they are for people and implementing also. I see a lot of businesses that are more intentional from sourcing, from what they sell, and I see that this dialogue is actually culminating in a very positive way, and it becomes so big that a lot of people are not, hunger is not in the vocabulary anymore. It's about, of course, the word abundance, the word I'm full, the word everything is sustainable, and everything is fair for everyone. So I see that the slum that I went to this morning, all those faces of children that are staring at me, They're living in a 5 square meter house, like the favela in Brazil, or worse, in a dump site. I see that these children are dreaming, these children are healthier, and their children are all in school. So in 10 years from now, I go back in there and it's like full of school, the houses with urban farming, and the kids are actually healthier than when I see them today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Sherry. Thank you so much, Sherry. And next up, we have the team captain of the founding team of 12 for Food Abundance, a dear brother, an incredible ally, a visionary from the future, an elder of our times, David Solomon. Thank you so much for being with us, David. You might be on mute, David.
Thank you. Thank you. It seems in 2030, there's a lot of David Solomons and Lucians and Nickies. Seems we've got to cloning. But first things first, I want to congratulate you all. We made it. We made it against all odds. And I salute you. I salute you who heeded the warnings of the pandemic in 2020. I salute you who prepared for the systemic shocks to follow in the years to come: climate change, war, pandemics. We were prepared. We heeded the warnings of history. We learnt from the collapse of food systems that led to the collapse of civilization after the Great Plague in 1351 AD. We learnt how they turned that collapse into the Renaissance that followed. And together we laid a grid over the earth of 2030. We wanted to create a virtual world of the planet where we wanted our children to thrive in future generations. We mapped existing food systems and future food systems into these simulations of this global game, one that enabled us to rapidly prototype how to solve the collapse of food systems and create food abundance for all. We enabled everyone to plug in, every corporation, every man, every woman, every child, from every walk of life to participate and to be rewarded in this Champions League of the most abundant food solutions. And for the first time in human history, we harnessed collective intelligence, and with the power of this technology, we were able to rapidly scale the greatest solutions to zero hunger and food abundance at the grassroots. And the reward mechanisms that we achieved for the people who participated were beyond imagination. We were like neurons firing in a global mind. And I remember how when our youth woke up each day, they weren't blindly searching social media anymore. They were breaking the status quo. They were seeing how their individual voice, thumbprint, had grown within a global vision. They were seeing how many lives they've made whole and the rewards that they've achieved. And do you remember how we started? By each contributing just one meal, not sacrificing, but we each invested one meal into this game, into this perpetual engine at the grassroots. And those seeds grew into a 33-fold return for our families over the past 10 years. What we did was based on the fundamentals of mathematics and economics. It was not some make-believe thing. And we are here because of you, because you distributed these solutions each year to every local farmer struggling in the developing world, to every family that wanted to be free from the shackles of dependence. And so here it is. It's our victory, our Champions League of collective intelligence, the most equitable solutions known to man, the greatest leagues on earth, the best education tools, the best yields, the best seeds, the best videos, the best knowledge, our champions in the World Harvest Festival of 2030, which we've been running each year. And now we see around the world millions of candles lighting up billions in the night sky, restoring a harvest festival that's been missing for 1600 years. And we have reclaimed our destiny. We have reclaimed our sovereignty. And this is our renaissance. This is our celebration. This is our 10th year. And we called you to be the architects of our future. And you responded. You leveraged our global infrastructure. And I salute you for eliminating greed with a seamless economic model. I salute you for breaking the status quo that have remained blind to the deaths of millions of children each day. I salute you. You have ignited hope. You have lit her torch, and you built a world without hunger so that we became a united planet, so that at long last, we liberated man from the shackles of working to survive, to a renaissance of labor that was intimate with life's inmost secret.
Aho, aho, David. What a delivery. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for everything you do and your leadership here. I also want to say that we are joined, the artists among us are the guides to the future, and we are all artists. And we are joined today by two incredibly talented artists from the Design Science Studio. This is an initiative that was inspired by the work of the great elder for all of us, Buckminster Fuller. It's an educational incubator for art that empowers global creators to imagine regenerative futures that ignites and catalyzes inspiration, conversation, and action, leading towards the transition to a world that works for 100% of life. And we're going to witness, as we weave these stories from 2030, we're going to witness these two creators, Olivia Goethling, I'm trying to pronounce correctly, known for creating immersive environments and interactive events that nurture and catalyze innovation, creativity, and enthusiastically inspired ideation. Olivia is currently developing modules for how we envision collaborative culture through an innovative artistic experience center. And then a very dear friend of mine who I love to wear her clothes, dear Gunel Ava, is a multidisciplinary artist with a passion for the environment. She is the founder and creative director of Gunel, a wearable art sustainable fashion brand whose mission is to realign with nature's principles. So thank you so much. Thank you, Design Science Studio. We love you. Thank you for bringing your arts and inspiring us all. And with that said, an ancient friend from the future, Dawn Nakagawa from the Berggruen Institute. Dawn, I can't wait to meet you. Welcome to 2030.
I'm turning on my camera. Can you hear me? Hi, everybody. Well, thank you for including me. This is such an exciting celebration. I love it. So I don't usually get to do this kind of visioning exercise, but I think it's really, really important. Particularly because the moment we're in is so opportune. So how did we arrive at 2030? We arrived at 2030 because this pandemic struck in 2020 and it woke us all up to this crazy life we'd been living that made no sense whatsoever. And what we realized in the years that followed was not only could we change our life radically in the face of a crisis, but there was so much opportunity to see and live life in a totally different way. And one of the things that we did in the years that followed was we realized that we needed elementally, and this was another lesson that the pandemic came to teach us, that we needed to reckon with a very different relationship with the planet, very different. And the way we'd been treating the planet for thousands of years, as if we had dominion over it, as if we owned it, and it didn't, it doesn't belong to us, we belong to it. And we started to realize that we had to develop entirely new ideas and entirely new philosophies to adapt to a brand new reality. And the way in for most people, for us urbanites stuck behind our devices, the way into that relationship with the planet turned out to be food. If we could change the way we consumed, how we consumed, if we could be more conscious about that consumption, it would change every part of our lives. And it would get us to respect and honor the planet that gives us life. And in so doing, we reached a new equilibrium. And it turned out that the structure of society, the system was the problem. It was the system. We were living in hierarchies. We were living in pyramids that relied on large portions of the population sitting at the bottom with very few sitting at the top. And the people at the bottom had no access to the people at the top. And the people at the top had all the resources and all the wealth, and they distributed it very scarcely to the bottom. So we realized that this siloed system of pyramids and hierarchies that we call society was the problem. And not only was that the problem, but we weren't actually living there anymore. We were pretending to live there. It turned out we were living in networks, and networks are flat, and networks are horizontal, and networks, in the way power works in a network, is that the people with the most access and the most connections are the ones that are powerful, not the ones with the least. And it turns out that they're much better at distribution. So as we evolved our philosophy to embrace an entirely new concept of what it means to be a society and an entirely new concept of what it means to belong to this planet and belong to each other and have a sense of accountability to both the planet and to each other. We both solved climate change and the food crisis by honoring the earth and by giving to each other and being part of networks that give and receive and do so with flexibility and dynamism and ease. And by breaking down the power structures and making and destroying the silos and collapsing the pyramids. And it happened because in 2020, something came along to hit us in the head. And it hit us hard, and it made us afraid, deeply afraid. And it was only in that fear that we could be broken open and see something different. So welcome to 2030. We're so much better off than we were in 2020. We're so much happier than we were. And the planet is so much healthier. So we have lots and lots to celebrate. And it's like 9 a.m. for me, so I don't have a drink, but here, cheers to everybody.
Dawn, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Now we have, there's some time, you know, we're playing with time here, and time is this, it's the biggest trickster of all. But so let's go. Can we squeeze in? Do we have Khan Mathers in the house? You might be as like somehow I've digitally cloned myself on the Zoom meeting. It's not me. Khan, are you with us?
I'm here.
Yo, Khan from Terramera, the man who with the plan, who through Terramera fed 1 billion people now by 2030. Khan, tell us how you did it.
Hey, brother, it's great to be here. Thank you for doing this and everyone joining on World Food Day. It's, you know, it's amazing that just 10 years ago, this it was a dream that we might be able to actually use food to not only just to nourish our entire planet, but nourish all the people on the planet, but actually to nourish the planet. It is amazing being here where we've actually changed much of how agriculture and food production has occurred in the world, so that more and more of the farms that are producing our food have actually adopted and embraced regenerative agricultural principles, where we're actually not just growing our food for us, but actually doing it in a way that's that actually nourishes the land and actually builds the soil, builds the land, and solves and has turned back the clock on climate change. It's beautiful that we've built out the technology to actually really understand how we can actually live in alignment with the land and actually have reduced much of the synthetic chemicals that we used to put onto the planet, and realize we can actually grow our food without much of what we needed before, and actually grow more food, feeding at least 1 billion more people than we did 10 years ago, while pulling the carbon out of the atmosphere back into the soil where it belongs, where it can actually nourish the soil and nourish the plants and the food that we grow. it's happening. It's happening now. We're building the technology to allow us to scale even more.
Carton, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for all the magic you did with Soil Carbon. You're a hero to us all, Khan. Thank you. And on to another hero of this story, an archetypal character, a rock star, the creator of Ecoversity. There's ecoversities all over the world. The creator of Punta Mona, Alegria, Ecovia, Stephen Brooks. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Lucian. Yes, I can't even believe it's been, now 12 years since we've known each other, but yeah, what a miracle. I feel, I look back on the last 10 years and I think about the pandemic and all that went down and how hard it was. And yeah, what an incredible shift it had on our globe, and how many people have woke up to actually caring about other people and about food. And yeah, now 2030, we've basically created, by working with the Department of Agriculture of every country in the world, not one country is not on board now. We have created incredible living genetic banks of all the most important plant species for those regions. Like, I can't believe it took us this long to do it, but finally it's been done. The finest of genetics are organized and being distributed. And we've created communities where we've merged where we live with what we eat. And we have trained, literally, we have just hit our 2 million mark of graduates from the Ecoversity, where we are training young people the most important lessons on earth, from ecological design to regenerative agricultural food systems to green building to just, the next level of social interaction and fairness. And yeah, it's to me, it's still mind blowing that it took us this long, but I'm so grateful to see where we are now in 2030. I cannot even imagine what these next years of joy and of celebration of a world that is so freaking abundant. And there's not so much competition, my brand against your brand. There's just so much abundance that we don't need to fight. We don't need to argue. We don't need to even compete, because the abundance is just overwhelming. And it's been such an honor to be a part of this genetic kind of collection and this distribution of genetics. And I am just so excited by the food forests that are just literally spreading the earth. It's interesting. I just, right before this call, took a moment and looked at Google Earth of 2010, and then the decline into 2020. And now looking at the Google Earth of 2030 and just seeing the green spread across the globe is so inspiring. And I really just want to thank everyone on this call, everything that you've done to help make this possible, all of the incredible pieces and roles that you've played in this delicious movie that we're all a part of. Thank you all so much, Lucian. I love you.
I love you, brother. What a great celebration and the greatest story ever told. Thank you, Stephen, for everything you're doing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. The great storyteller from Costa Rica. Thank you, Stephen. And now we have, so next up we have Magali Silva. Magali, we were in Rio together for the,
That's right.
For the summit. It's so good to have you here. Magali is the former Foreign Trade and Tourism Minister for Peru. Thank you so much, Magali. Over to you. It's 2030.
Great to see you. You're always in fashion, right? Great fashion. So, my story is that in 2030, I wake up and I hopefully have my great-grandchildren. And they ask me, hey, Grammy, how was the world 10 years ago? And I said, I don't know. Why don't we go to our garden and get our own lettuce, get our own vegetables, and start preparing our food. And by cooking together, I'm going to tell you the story, how it was the world and how the pandemic changed us all. We went from, and all of you have said that crises are the catalyst for major personal and structural changes. They all have been working like that in all history of human beings, right? So the pandemic really changed us. I would tell my great grandchildren, my grandchildren, this story, right? The oceans were asking us for a change of life. And we did it. We did it. 2020 was that year that we all shifted. And there was a wonderful movement that I belong to. I will tell them that is the SGM, the family that really changed the participation or the possibility of being part of this great change. That sometimes, you know, we don't realize how capable we are of really making that happen. And we're all sitting there complaining and waiting for someone else to change what we don't like. And it's the time when we start, you know, sitting at the table, raising our voice, telling what we think, being listened, because this is a wonderful thing that SGM has done for all of us. We all have the same right to be listened. We all have the same right to share our ideas. Sometimes they're good, they're not good. Sometimes they're not proper ones. Sometimes they're not the right ones. But you know what? Together, in that process, we find that common path that really made it happen. So 2030 would be the year where we sit down, maybe October, 10 years from now, and we will be celebrating that we don't see children, we don't see women, we don't see elderly walking in the streets. We see farmers and huge companies, you know, multinationals, right organizations, all working, governments, local, national, regional, all levels of governments working together. And as many of you said, is the most important thing for a human being is the basic thing is food, right? Food opens up our brains, food opens up our hearts. And if we don't have food, the rest doesn't exist. So by having food in our table, it would be a start of building a new world, because 2030, we will set up the new goals for the next 10 years and for leaving this planet a healthy one for all of us to live and be happy, because that's the most important thing.
Magali, thank you so much. Thank you. What a beautiful story from the future. Next, we have another dear brother, Reiki Corden, calling in from Bali. It's 2:10 a.m. The day after World Food Day in 2030 in Bali. You know, there's a real street party going on there. So Reiki, the creator of Seeds, the creator of Haifa, with your team, thank you for everything you've done. You've been a partner for a decade. You are a brother from the ancient future. And thank you for transforming the world of money and showing that money is not based on scarcity, but we can turn it into a regenerative currency, one where everybody is rewarded for their participation. Thank you for what you did, Reiki. Introducing you.
Well, thank you, Lucian. I certainly wouldn't say I'm the creator, just facilitating this beautiful emergence that's been happening these last, 15 years now. So 2030, we will look back at 2020, and it was really curious to see that humanity does repeat itself, and how the Black Plague ushered in the medieval Renaissance and kind of helped humanity rethink the foundation of their civilizations at the time. We had that same opportunity about a decade ago, where when we realized that we could partake and evolve the very foundations of our civilization. That as a collective, just we're no longer meeting our needs. So we decided to create new financial and governance and economic systems, ones that were governed directly by the people, that were transparent, that we could rethink how we distributed value. When we look back at 2020, we saw that central banks are making trillions, tens of trillions of dollars in wealth. And we realized that this money wasn't going to solve humanity's greatest crises. It wasn't going to solve world hunger. It wasn't going to regenerate our planet and plant the trees that we needed. But in fact, that money was going to concentrate wealth and make wealth inequality more exacerbated. $5.5 trillion in a single year went to subsidize oil and gas industries, opposed to subsidizing the renewable energy industry. It was completely madness. But fortunately, that was a decade ago. And today we have control. The people have control over the financial systems and the very fabric of the civilization that directs and distributes wealth. So solving world hunger was a very easy task to do once we were able to direct collective resources towards that task. And it wasn't just rethinking our economic systems, it was rethinking our relationship with the planet. It was really beautiful to see in the mid-2020s where we started recognizing that food wasn't just some dead energy that we needed to consume, but food came from plants, and plants had sentience. And our relationship with them impacted the quality of food that we were consuming. And we started realizing that it wasn't just mass monocropped fields that were going to feed humanity, but it was local, biologically diverse, thriving food that was going to heal humanity. And we started setting up local food systems and started growing food, not lawns, and started cooking food out of our houses and selling it with each other. So home-cooked, local, beautiful, delicious, and healing foods became the norm. Fast food restaurants were something that were relegated to museums where we were. I remember going to one of those the other day and looking at it, that people actually cared about convenience and fast food and something that was gonna ultimately cause them cancer, and we were paying money for that. It was just completely absurd. So we're really happy to be here. And, Nikki mentioned that we formed all these partnerships in 2020. And I think that was the foundation to what got us here in 2030, was we had to start thinking outside of the bounds of capitalism and competition, and which one organization was going to be the one that saved the day. We started realizing that it was actually the network, and it was all of these movements and different pieces that needed to come together and form the fabric of a new type of civilization. It didn't take us very long, because in 2020, all the pieces already existed. So I think all we really needed to do in the early 20s was to come together. And I remember a call like this that happened about a decade ago, and we're talking about this, beautiful emergence that was going to take place. And we started working together, and we started to say, we started sharing resources and making decisions together and started cooperating at scale. We were able to opt out of the nation state model. They only have control because we allow them to have control. That $10 trillion of made up money was only impactful because we allowed it to be impactful. But once we opted into our new systems where we could create wealth and we could direct that wealth, and we all had a direct voice in how that wealth was distributed, then solving our problems became more and more easy, exponentially easy, as we connected in. So it's been an honor being on this journey with all of you over this last decade. Hopefully I'm making some sense. It's about 1:30 in the morning for me here. Lies, it's actually a little bit after 2. So I think I'm going to stay on here and continue enjoying this journey with you for a little bit longer. But, really, really inspired to be here and see all these voices come to the table. So thank you all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Reiki. Thank you, brother. This crazy thing happened where a bunch of us got cloned, which is the thing I always wanted to happen. Like, I just didn't expect it to happen like on a Zoom call. Thank you, all those other Lucians out there. Let's get to work together. So Rebecca Jean calling in from Costa Rica. So welcome to 2030. Thank you so much for being with us. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that has shared. It's great to have a check-in with you guys after this last 10 years. The thing that just keeps coming up for me is I just remember the moment of my awakening 10 years ago. I remember sitting in my house in the Bay Area and having lived through 3 fire seasons, 3 super intense fire seasons where the skies are filled with smoke, where I was protecting my young daughter from inhaling plastics and various other things that had burned from the sky. And I had this feeling deep in my body that I needed to take action. And it wasn't going to be a tomorrow thing. It was a now thing. Back when I had this moment that I needed to find land and secure that land and begin to be the change that the world needed to see. And I was actually in Bali and I felt the suffering of our planet. I felt like any person, when a boundary has been crossed enough, then there's a pushback. It's like, hey, I was kind, I was sweet, and now I'm going to let you know really firmly that this isn't working for me. And so I remember that moment where I felt the disparity with Mother Earth, and how gravely I was aware that I needed to be part of the solution of reimagining the new Earth. And so I secured some beautiful properties, and as we all know now, sparked and helped to create a platform for people to come in and plug their skills in an agricultural way, to provide the infrastructure for people to come and give their gifts and support the creation of food at a ground level. And the thing that was so interesting back then was how much we knew about eating, but how little we knew about growing food. How the certainty of hunger was so visceral, and yet the delta between hunger to nourishment was profound. And I was very excited then, and continue to be so excited about partnering with my friend Stephen Brooks in Costa Rica for all of his efforts. And I'm so proud that what has started, so many years ago in Costa Rica has become a global movement, and exists in many places independent of what's been sparked here, but that people are so keen and comfortable to give up the convenience of the city, to give up the convenience of Amazon, and to put their feet in the dirt. And that's the most profound thing of all, is it's really not that complicated, but sometimes it takes a cataclysmic event or even a catastrophic event for people to wake up, such as myself. And after that awakening, making this my life mission to create the new Earth. And there's been times where I felt incredibly hopeless. And what's gotten me through those moments is continuing to anchor into the new Earth paradigm, continuing to visualize myself setting the table for everybody else that follows in the wake. And people come every single day. We get more and more families saying, I want in on that. Where else can I plug my family? We're ready to move. We're ready to move into soil. We're ready to move onto land. What do you have for me? And I've been so honored to be a shepherd of individuals and families that have decided to pursue self-sufficiency as it relates to food, and sovereignty as it relates to food, so that we can be part of the larger whole of feeding those that are perhaps not as privileged and resourced to make those moves right away. And the part that I'm so excited about these activations over the last 10 years is how we've been able not just to feed the individuals, but feed the communities that these properties and developments support. So incredibly excited to connect with all of you. If you've got land, if you have even a little bit of soil, then if you've got a little bit of dirt, then you can make soil. And if you can make soil, then you can make food. And if you can make food, then you can alleviate hunger. So get in touch if you want any soil making resources or any kits. If you're in an urban environment, we've got lots and lots of resources to educate people. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Love you so much. Thank you for this. And thank you for everything you did this last decade and beyond. And you're such an example leader to us. Back to Soil and Soul was one of the memes that we spread at the beginning of this golden decade. And how we did that, how we rooted back to the consciousness of our planet, that frequency that we forgot how to listen to. And we saw indigenous communities as somehow like less evolved as our society back in 2020, when they never had their umbilical cord cut from the frequency of our shared mother. And so with that said, I would love to introduce a very dear brother, a poet, a spectacle creator of a storyteller of the greatest spectacles over the last 10 years, Noah Crow. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, guys. It's so amazing to see you all. I feel like none of you have aged a day since I saw you last back then in the Great Turning. And I'm here in New Mexico, just south of the San Luis Valley. We have fruit growing on the trees. And the people today in 2030 are hungry. They are starving for adventure. We are no longer hungry for the food and communities that nourish us. Now our children are looking up to the space elevator up in Colorado going, I want to see the Earth from space and fly, Mom. And Mom is saying, of course, honey, next spring we will go, because the people are fed in their bodies and their souls. And now the children's eyes are bright with unlimited possibilities of the worlds that they can inhabit, that they can create here on the earth now, since we gave birth to ourselves. And we thought back then that the solutions were so complex because the problems were so complicated, but it was so simple. It was right here, all over in New Mexico, in Colorado. We just
He's done it.
Stopped. And we went back to the land and started to listen to our indigenous fellows. We started to listen to the ages of wisdom that they had never lost. And we put our knees down to the ground and we prayed by planting. We prayed by planting the future generation's fruit so many years ago. And now there's so much food, we don't even know what to do with it. We walk through our villages and cities and the animals are walking with us. We're petting deer. The squirrels are happy. Even the panthers will walk through our neighborhoods. And all it took was us stopping long enough to retake stewardship of the land and realize that there was no money greater than a plate of food shared with another. And all of a sudden the world took that big, deep breath and realized that all the fear of breathing in each other's air was the greatest realization that COVID had ever given us, which was we share the same breath everywhere we go. And we are united in breath, either in our destruction or our creation. And so I am so grateful to be on a planet where each of you brought your gifts so powerfully, so compellingly, so simply, that now we just get to watch the children's eyes light up at the worlds that they can inhabit that we lost to our dreams years ago, but reclaimed now. Thank you. Thank you for being on this journey.
Noah, thank you. Thank you, the prophet from the future. I appreciate you so much, Noah. Thank you, brother. Maya Zuckerman. Maya has been she was ahead of the times. She was writing books about the future, about exactly what happened, like before it happened. She was one of the original storytellers. She coined the term the Earth shot. That time where we, instead of just limiting ourselves to the moonshot, we looked up and we saw in the mirror that it was up to us. We didn't just see the moon, we saw the mirror that who we were waiting for was us. Maya, Operations Jedi, an author, a storyteller, a visionary. Thank you so much, Maya. Over to you.
Thank you, dear brother. Such an honor to be here. Such beautiful people all over here, all celebrating our beautiful cities. As you can see behind me, a view to downtown San Francisco. We did it. And how did we do it? Yes, we remembered that soil is soul. And by transitioning all of our agriculture to regenerative agroforests, but also we took heed from one of our elders who is no longer with us, E.O. Wilson, and we just gave half the earth back to nature, but we became land stewards and protectors of all biodiversity. And in that world, we got ourselves back, our connection to nature in a way that we could never have anticipated. So let me walk you down San Francisco. You would not recognize it. As you can see, it's all a food forest. And of course, there's some wonderful, gorgeous redwoods in the middle of the city. since we reimagined what transportation would look like, we broke down most of the asphalt. And now it is this beautiful porous land that seeps in the water back into our aquifer. So we don't need to draw water from far away. We have it all contained, and every city can do that. We've developed all the technologies to help us actually water ourselves, feed ourselves. So now when we want to have a really good bar of chocolate every day, or a cup of coffee every day, we get to grow it ourselves. We have floating geodesic domes that are completely solar, renewable energy operated, grow whatever we need from the far land. So we can actually have a cup of coffee grown and brewed and created in San Francisco. But whenever we want that special cup of coffee, that special bar of chocolate, we pay a nice sum to the beautiful people who are conserving their land and regenerating the origins of where these beautiful fruits and beautiful herbs and beautiful plants are from. So they get to regenerate their land. They get to actually work their lands in the way that the ancestors did. And they do it in a way that is healthy and supportive for the whole global ecosystem. Every Thursday, all the most amazing chefs in the city cook the biggest meals, and people can come from everywhere and come to the huge tables all around the city's centers and just grab a plate, a reusable plate, and we all dine together and we eat together. So we see to it that nobody goes hungry. But if you are somebody that doesn't have food on the table from your own house every day, you get to go to one of your neighbors. You get to go to any of the agroforests and actually just pick and make your own food. The other way we've actually seen that everybody's fed in the city is we've taken over all these large, huge constructions that we had, and they actually create two big things, actually three big things. They get all of our energy. We get all of our energy from those beautiful, you remember those old towers that were office buildings? They're now our urban farming, vertical farms. There are our renewable energy, and also some of them actually take some of the fog in the fog season and convert it into water. So we're always have another way of grabbing our water and bringing it back into the land. So we have 365 year-round food for the city, and every city in the world has done that. And all the other rural areas have been supported to just create their own food universes and paradises, and are supported with actually exchange of food from the city to the rural areas. And nobody goes hungry. Do you remember this idea of people going hungry? That doesn't make any sense anymore. How can people go hungry when there's so much abundance? And the most beautiful things is the herds of bison all over the United States and the other large apex predators and apex big cattle roaming the lands again. And when people do need to eat meat, they get one sort of really, really healthy meat. But if most of us have gone back to eating the beautiful plants and vegetables that are all in abundance for us, so we're all healthy, nobody is like the idea of diabetes, like that doesn't even exist anymore. I remember hearing about it back in the day, but people are so healthy. And with healthy people, the culture and the community grows, and we just enjoy each other's humanity again, and we enjoy the connection to nature, because nature is back in the cities. I think I saw a bunch of coyotes last week, and if I'm not mistaken, there was a conversation that we saw a mountain lion come through our green bridges that we created for nature, because we also want to create that healthy space where nature feels they can come through without being scared by us, the people. So we are actually learning how to live together with nature in our cities. So yeah, please come join us here in San Francisco in 2030. It's such a wonderful experience, and you're going to get fed, and you're going to have such beautiful interaction with nature here. So I welcome you all to join me here.
Amazing, Maya. Amazing, amazing. You know, Maya, the thing that we also want to invite in San Francisco is we have been the leading city in the world multiple times. We're at the top of the league table for the Perpetual Planetary Party.
Mm-hmm.
The party that never stopped. It went on all decade and went from city to city and lighthouse to lighthouse and farm to farm. It never stopped. And it was based on this simple rule of passing the baton, saying, make it a better party. San Francisco's the top of the league table. Thank you so much, Maya. So next up, the mushroom farm. Nick Rotundo, a visionary, a farmer of a new archetype farmer of the ancient future. He is a dear brother. He's been a steward of the land at our dearest mushroom farm, our ally of the Lightning Factory here in San Francisco. And together we transformed food circles. We created food circles connecting all the different lighthouses all across the Bay Area that would bring the abundance that's grown at the mushroom farm. Thank you so much for creating such a fine model of the circular economy in local areas. Nick, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. You're muted, brother. There you
With
go.
so much love and gratitude for the space you hold, mate. Thanks, Lucian. I am so bloody elated, folks. We are so excited, so grateful that for literally the last 100 years prior, we were constantly dividing and deciding all the compartmentalization and specialization that we started over the last 10 years, re-understanding and remembering the interconnectedness of all living things and all living systems, and realizing that us caring for the ocean is no different from us caring where the water falls in the mountains, and realizing the streams that connect them both are what feed the animals in between, that feed the grasses, that feed the forestation. And thanks to the great work of our brothers John Liu and Jenny at Community Carbon Trees, and all the great green band that crossed the agroforestry projects all through Africa, that we now have over 2 trillion new trees in the ground in the last decade. And we are no longer hungry for food, as our good mate Noah says. We are now hungry for adventure and explorations of creativity. No longer is slavery at the backs of the human hand in the agricultural food distribution networks of the world. Now the abundance is shared with all. And the quinoa that is grown in these places in Peru is now eaten and enjoyed by those in Peru. And the beef and the cattle that is regeneratively grazed in Argentina is now consumed by Argentinians. And these localized food systems have totally transformed. And it's through our acceptance of the intersection of regenerative science, agricultural technology, and renewable energy that this was possible. And that us inviting the technological adaptations of the robots that were able to help us take away the backbreaking work and finding new forms of sovereignty. And that now, with all the extra time through automation that we found, that people are now caring for our children, people are now caring for the elderly, and people are now caring for the land. And with those systems in place, we're so unbelievably grateful for what's come as a result of this. Looking in the back, we now have over 600% more topsoil. And now the water retention has now held that in the ground. And now the microclimates and the rains have returned to the desertified areas. And the abundance is overflowing. I can't imagine it becoming any better. And these localized systems, as our good mate Maya was saying, like, we're seeing the food as a local systems. Every single rooftop, if it doesn't have a solar panel, has a beautiful garden. And we are looking at abundance for all, and the over excess of food is spread across the world as needed through regenerative and renewable systems. I cannot say how the turning point came when we decided that these interconnection of all things, and we're looking at education, wellness, and agriculture all being intrinsically linked. And once our children started to get involved in the gardens, and we started to see the monumental changes as they were inspired to care about their nutrition, that all of a sudden the depths of their creativity and inspiration, it was the children that led us here. It was the children that said, Mom, Dad, this is no longer acceptable. And they literally moved the needle from everywhere from 2 to 3 years old up to 15, 16, 17-year-olds, literally changed every single portfolio around the world and said, we will no longer stand for this. So my deepest gratitude for the children that came through for us in the end and literally moved the needle, and all the different huge redistribution of wealth that went towards our people, distribution of land to the indigenous populations, and then distribution of food to those that are in need. So grateful to be part of this all with you all, and so excited for what the next 20 years brings. It's been such a humbling experience to be part of it all. And you know what? I think we are looking better, honestly. I think we are going back in time. I'm sure it has to do with a metric of happiness that we didn't really take into our accounting practices prior, but now I'm certain of it. Love you all. Thank you.
Boom, 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 absolutely. And all that amazing food we're eating, because we are what we eat, including happy vegetables, happy people. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Nick.
Absolutely love you, Lucian. I hope to squeeze you before you roll out to the next chapter of your life, mate. I love you intensely. What a visionary, what a gentleman.
Love you, brother. Thank you so much. Right, Paula from Colombia. Paula, are you with us? Just check in because the videos.
Yes, I'm here.
Paula has been such a part of this game that transformed the world for the last 10 years. She was one of the original players. Thank you so much, Paula, for being part of the Infinite Games and in Colombia.
Well, my vision, first of all, thank you, Lucian. I'm overwhelmed today. And I had like 5 different ears because I was in the community and I'm listening to you guys and on a live, and it's been really overwhelming this day. And I'm deeply touched by all those, like being with you visionaries here in this session. My vision is very concrete. It's about, we're right now starting with nutrition education labs in Medellin, and my dream, like in 2030, when I wake up in 2030, I hope that, or I feel, where I'm seeing nutrition education labs all over the world, where restaurants, schools, universities open their doors to talk about nutrition, to talk about the importance of the soil, and that about food, about everything which has to do with nutrition. So that's my vision for 2030. And that's what we're starting here. And I think with this beautiful network and movement, that's something what we can achieve together. So yeah, thank you to everyone for this beautiful session.
Paula, thank you for being such an amazing, peaceful warrior on the front line of this love network. We so appreciate you. Thank you so much. And next we have Mackenzie. Mackenzie's been also a fellow teammate from the very, very beginning. And he was born like all of us. He was born for this role. Second generation food harmonizer. The creator of GeoGrow. He reimagined how we could finance the entire agricultural system using technologies that were seen as new back in 2020, like blockchain and smart contracts. So over to you, Mackenzie. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lucian. And as we gather today to think about outcomes, that's really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what our vision, what our goals are for what we can achieve together in the next 10 years and reflect on the last 10 years. And I want to ask us to think about how all of the details work themselves out, how the hows found their way from where we were to where we are and on to where we're going. And how by focusing on outcomes, by focusing on what we want to achieve together, as we're doing today in gathering and reviewing the last 10 years, it gives us a common goal. It gives us a shared vision. And when we think about what we're talking about in reflection today, it starts under our feet. Universally, we realized soil was the answer to so many of our problems. Universally, we realized that spraying toxins onto our food wasn't creating the environment that allowed our internal and our external ecologies to thrive. And more importantly, the violent relationship that we used to maintain with the world that we live in wasn't supporting and nurturing and nourishing us as humanity, as people, as families, as parents. And so together, 10 years ago, we put our heads together and our hearts together and our hands together, and we showed up with a common outcome in mind. And we reassessed what we thought of as an agricultural system, as a food system, what we thought of as an approach to financing these things. And instead of focusing on contracts that allowed us to discuss the divorce before the marriage, contracts that put people into a system of language, this finance language that's built around confrontation and violence, contracts that focused on penalties and focused on predatory relationships between financiers and those that are financed. Instead of this kind of relationship, we realized 10 years ago that we could focus on outcomes. We could focus on achieving a shared vision together and allow the infinitude of emergence of the universe to be realized through us in presence together, without getting lost in all the risk assessment, the quantification of fear that so dominated our thinking through the Industrial Revolution. And so with a new model of finance that focuses on outcomes, with a new model of professional community that defaults to collaboration, that considers competition anathema when we share an ecology, when we share this world, and when we share a vision for an outcome that makes day-to-day decisions that much easier. So we innovated with tools that allowed us to issue smart contracts that focused on outcomes and identified deliverables and milestones, that allowed financiers to be partners, not competitors, not predators, that allowed donors and philanthropy to work with crowdfunding and venture capital and institutional capital in a stack of capital focused not on the penalties for what you may or may not achieve this quarter or next quarter, not on short-term goals to feed Wall Street's greed, but on long-term goals focused on collective outcomes that we can all put our heads and hearts and hands into. And so we established ethical trading with tools for transparency and decentralized trust in trade and commerce. And what did this give us? This gave us back a heart-centered conversation around the outcomes we all want to share, not a head-centered conversation around the risks we all take in doing business together. And from the moment that we made those tools available, from the moment that we made it easy for people to record any type of media and data on multiple digital ledgers, tokenized into multiple currencies simultaneously, to create their own private digital economies, to focus on outcomes and the values and costs and prices and involvements of all the stakeholders that are necessary to achieve those outcomes, and to start by financing the outcomes, working backwards, reverse engineering with the tools and the knowledge and the genius and the collective talents of this community that's standing by, ready to dig in. And by reversing our expectations of fighting and financing our way up a value chain toward a transaction that delivers value, fighting over the competitive and positioning nature of legal and cultural and community-based relationships that determine not only it's just business, but our genuine presence in the world, with our families, with our professional lives, and with ourselves. Instead of focusing on what has been and realizing where that's gotten us, now we're focused on shared outcomes. And we're working together each day to fulfill smart contracts that we issued for ourselves, Smart contracts that aren't full of traps, that aren't full of penalties, that are full of recognition that none of us really knows. We don't need to pitch each other with financials we don't believe in. We don't need to make up stories around these businesses we don't understand, around these innovations that haven't happened yet, and guess at what those outcomes might be. Instead, we can realize what we're working toward together and what it's worth to all of us. And together we can create tools that support and encourage the reality of day-to-day life, which has gotten wrapped up in this nonsense they call entrepreneurialism. It's gotten wrapped up in this nonsense of people who are sponsored by big corporates, feeling somehow better or different or above people that aren't sponsored, working from home for their couch and trying to figure out how to make a better world. We're all in this together. And if we can focus on outcomes and look backwards, just like we did 10 years ago on a call together, thinking about this world in 2030, where we think about agriculture and food, not in terms of what we can grow and who we can sell it to, but in terms of the mouths that are waiting at the other end of the value chain, the people and the animals and the ecologies that are waiting for inputs and support, that are waiting for biological processes to be economical enough to matter. And if we focus on outcomes, if we focus on the world we want to live in, the people and the animals we want to feed and the ecologies we want to support, well, it makes it easier for the money to take care of itself. So thank you all the mentors and all the people who are here today who focused on that with us 10 years ago, who dug in and put their money where their mouth is, who showed up with their hands and their hearts and helped us deliver a better world for all of us. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Mackenzie. Deeply appreciate you. Well, next, so Thomas, how are you feeling? We've got Thomas, we've got Jonah, we've got Hawaii, and I think Germany, right?
I'm feeling well.
Good to see you, Thomas. Why don't you go next?
If you let me, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Welcome so much. Great to have you here, Thomas.
Thank you, Lucian. So, guys, I mean, today, 2030, I was deeply touched because we were able to put down the systems we have installed over the last decade to reestablish rain patterns in most of the continents by ionization. And when I look back 10 years ago, I was really scared about how this planet will feed us, looking at climate change and how it was accelerating more and more, looking at behavioral issues of people and food consumption and politics, corruption, that scared me. How would you implement new systems across borders that can provide solutions? So that scared me at that time. And this call back at the time motivated me to, to even fight harder together with people like-minded to bring technology solutions, not to kind of compete with Mother Earth, but maybe to help to push back the tipping points that that are immediately in front of us, at least if we look out of 2020. So thinking about how to feed 8 billion people in 2020 and knowing that just Africa in 2035 will be 4 billion alone was a task. You would need every single idea. You would need every single technology, and you have to be very careful to put it in the right hands. So I'm very happy that we didn't put it to Brazil's government, to US government, to celebrate technology as a solution for the misbehavior, right? But to be patient and use technology with the right systems at the right time, and made the people benefiting from overall increased rainfalls. And that actually today in 2030 made me happy that we could now start to take down the systems again, as we have now helped Mother Nature to reestablish and learn how rainfalls and green bands are functioning with vegetation alone in Kenya, where we started in 2020 to do rain operations in Africa first time, have created and restored land of over 35 million hectare that are now in intense agriculture use, and shared among the people and the tribes that at the time in 2020 were about to become refugees from climate change. So that made me happy. And I have to say, if I wouldn't have events with like-minded and giving me a visionary push, it would be very hard for me as an original farmer and traveling around the world before COVID, to have the power to continue to establish the system at that time. So I'm very grateful for this visionary push at that time that helped me now to say goodbye to the work I did and let Mother Nature take over again. Thank you.
Thomas, so beautiful. Thank you so much. So good to have you. You're joining us from Germany today, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, great.
At my farm, actually.
At your farm, even better, even better. How perfect. Thank you so much. Great to have you here. So next up, Jonah, if we could wait one moment, because Charles Michel is here and he needs to go shortly. And he is ancient friend from the future. He has been gathering people around transformative food experiences, really bringing back really fully the ritual of what it is to break bread together, the ritual and the art of what it is to break bread together. And some of the greatest spectacles over the last 10 years have been produced and designed by Charles. So thank you, Charles. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Lucien. It's such an honor to be here. Wow, what an incredible transition. The greatest transition, as we now start calling it. Maybe the greatest turning point, tipping point in our history as stewards of this planet and all of its life, as we are kind of awakening to. I want to start by just raising my cup of cacao drink to honor all the pain and all the grief and all the trauma that was created in the 20s, starting with the COVID crisis. Starting with the COVID crisis, where we had a lot of realizations, right? But it was that pain that helped us kind of awaken to many of the realities of our true potential as a species, as humans, and also that helped us mobilize back in 2020 and really step up to our potential, our voices, and really understanding the power of food as was so well said earlier, as our umbilical cord to the planet and to each other. And I want to just bring up to everyone's memory here, remember in 2025, when through the work we did at Social Gastronomy Movement, we managed to put on the global table the idea, and we helped realize that what we needed was not UBI, Universal Basic Income, but actually UBN, Universal Basic Nutrition. And remember how the following year, 2026, we celebrated the Nobel Peace Prize, that as an organization, we were able to celebrate for bringing nutrition, bringing food on every plate as a universal basic right. And that really marked something because then restaurants were community kitchens, community run, when we realized that the kitchen was actually the extension of agriculture, and the extension of agriculture in a way that embodies the ancient wisdom in the DNA of plants and in our DNAs as expressions of a landscape as humans with our ancestries, right? We are all indigenous from this planet, and we were able through that to really trigger a movement that now today we celebrate as a planet free of hunger. The only hunger that there is now is the one we choose to have, eventually fasting, to realize and remember how sacred the act of eating is, because it is the life we consume from the life on the planet. I'm so honored to be here with you all. And parenthesis, you're all welcome to join on Sunday. We'll be talking about the universal kitchen, and we're going to be going through a series of kitchens around the world where food solidarity is being expressed. Thank you all so much for the work that you're doing and that we did in this decade and that we will do in the following one. Much love.
Charles, thank you so much. What a beautiful vision, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Jonah, give us an interlude, an artistic interlude, which I'm sure you're going to appreciate. The Design Science Studio, which really was like at the forefront of telling the greatest story ever told, to be able to spread rather than ads everywhere. We used to have adverts that sold people more shit they didn't need back in the 20s. We completely got rid of that and we put art everywhere. And the Design Science Studio was part of that. They activated millions of artists. All of us are artists, but the Design Science Studio painted the streets. They told the greatest story ever told. There was a point in time where most of the people in the world didn't actually realize there was a team creating a new world. It was crazy back in the 2020s. They thought it was all about nation states and things. So with that said, Olivia has been with us documenting this. Olivia, we would love to profile, if you'd be able to somehow show, if you want to be enabled with screen share, I can do that. But over to you, Olivia.
Hi, everyone. Such an inspiring meeting. Thanks for all your visions. I will share my screen and let's have that do its magic. Can you see that? So here was your first conversation. It's a lot. And I will send this out, but I was highlighting everyone's insights, and what I love about doing these kind of boards is connecting the common threads and really what unites all of those ideas and visions. The word together came up a lot. I'm sure you guys know that. So that's the first one. And then really appreciate this manifestation exercise, Lucian, because I believe that's where real magic happens. So hoping that manifesting that in writing can also help making it become a reality. So here are everyone's visions or stories in 2030 of how we solved world hunger.
Woo! Yes. Olivia, thank you. Oh my goodness. So we're going to share this around with everyone.
Yes, please.
Design Science Studio knocks it out of the park. Like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you know, in the spirit of immediacy, you know, Burning Man is our greatest, you know, the greatest celebration of art on the planet. In the celebration of immediacy, Olivia and Ganel were notified this morning about World Food Day. And well done, thank you. Thank you for making magic. You know, there's something, there's an extra flash in magic when it's immediate. Magic wants to be witnessed. So thank you so much. Thank you, Olivia. This is utterly brilliant. Anything you'd like to share? What was your story from 2030? What happened?
2030? Well, on my part, I developed a really beautiful land project called the Alchemy Center, where I brought many artists from all over the world together to imagine a better future. And we started working in permaculture. We brought the most brilliant minds together. We brought CEOs together. We brought engineers together. And we created an environment where everyone was invited to join on this property, including people that don't have a lot of voices in our current systems. And by creating environments where all those socioeconomic groups from different socioeconomic statuses could meet, we created a beautiful brain trust, and we're able to create massive change through just one site. That's my vision. Join me on that.
You are a living example of the seed fractal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So next, Gunal, we're going to do one back to 2030, and that's with our dear brother Jonah, calling in from Maui in Hawaii. Always at the forefront of regenerative systems change and Win for All. Jonah, having had an experience in Burning Man, this archetypal character, a fireman goes to Burning Man and has this transformative experience. Jonah, you birth the Jedi Academy, you birth the Jedi Masterclass, you become one of the founding team players back in 2020. You help rename from Unified Planet to United Planet. You join the Council of 12 to shape what this becomes. You are an elder of this transition period. I so salute you, dear brother. Tell us what happened. Over to you.
Mahalo, Lucian. Thank you so much, brother. It was such an honor to be here at the table with all of you. Wow, what a decade to experience and to just be here and see how every bit of what we created in all of our transformation of ourselves just dropped in and expanded into the cosmos through the magic of life and love and light and just loving life and giving thanks to that. So this is what I feel is a story right now for it, is once upon a time, forces of nature combined to heal the earth. Governing ourself as sovereign energetic life forms is the key. For force is the frequency of relativity, co-creating enlightened solutions for humanity's evolution and healing to become whole. In wholeness, veterans of war and colonialization and sexual trauma all coming together for healing through multi-generational conversations, listening deeply with vulnerability, confidence, and fear. Face everything and rise. Acting in service as masters that know nothing, which allows space for spirit and love to provide food for us all. Creating balance with vitality and making declarations of interdependence, honoring Jaja, Goddess, God, all of us organic farming and permaculture and food forests and community and full-on co-creation, giving thanks and praise to the land, to the water, to the plants, co-producing life. For all our metaphysical thoughts to be embodied as we're giving thanks to the sun, uniting nations with principles to process our social gastronomy with loving vibrations and breaths of aloha. Aho mitakueasi. In 2030, I'm sitting here in this beautiful environment, this beautiful island of Maui in Hawaii, and I'm remembering in 2020 coming in and seeing a ravaged land that was once paradise that is now returned to paradise through food security and food sovereignty movements, island-wide, nationwide, worldwide, as a galactic federation came together and shared around the table. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your journey. May we continue to live on. Live long and prosper. Peace, love, and bananas.
Oh, you're so good, Jonah. Peace, love, and bananas. So good. I love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for that wisdom, for that vision, for that story, for that art. Thank you so much. Gunal, are you with us, Gunal? I'd love to invite you to come and join us, share your vision, share your story, share your beautiful art. Thank you so much for being with us and being part of Design Science Studio.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I would like to share with you my screen real quick. So I designed this collage, and what spoke to me deeply is the idea that we're part of nature, that she doesn't belong to us. We belong to her. So I created this collage to kind of envision, embody that future for us where we live in full harmony with nature and understand that we create the balance, that we're in balance with her. So yeah, I will share it later in the group as well.
Now, thank you. I always wondered why people talk about going into nature. It didn't ever make sense to me. I was like, don't we realize that we are nature? So thank you so much, Gunal. Thank you for being with us. And Gunal, would you like to share your story? Because it's pretty remarkable from 2030.
Oh, it truly is remarkable. Well, you know, that I've been really trying to get a message across about fabrics, because, you know, we're not only what we eat, we're also what we wear. And in the future, like, we finally made it. We fought really hard, but every company that we speak to, they offset carbon imprint. They don't hurt the environment. We don't create fabrics that are bad for and creating pollution in the world. Everything's sustainable and organic and works for 100% of humanity and makes nature strive even stronger. Everything we create is packaged in beautiful fertilizer and sustainable recycled materials. So we're saving the environment every time we do a purchase. So we finally shift from consumerism to being part of the next generation of creating sustainable future. So yeah, it's a beautiful world where I am.
Gunal, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing your art. Thank you for being your art. Thank you for living your art. Thank you for wearing your art. Deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Dressing me in your art.
Oh, it's a deep honor to dress you.
2030 superheroes are emerging. We have these epic gowns, these vestments of timelessness that Gunal has created for us. Thank you so much. From your happy silkworms. Thank you so much. Who would like to go next? We have more of the social gastronomy team, and I want to hear from you guys. Maybe Q, anyone, Maya, Janet?
Like, do they help you with anything? Do they make your life better? Do you really pay attention to any of them?
Oh God, let me recover. I just had like a purge of social media. I hate this so much.
Great.
I feel nauseous inside.
What was that?
It's okay. We will, it was an unmuted. So who would like to go next? Janet, is that you? Q. Anyone that would like to go next can unmute.
I'll go.
Go Maya.
Maya.
Hi everyone, I'm Maya. Maya Maida from the Social Gastronomy Movement. You know, it's 2030 and I'm sitting here in my house that's made out of cob, which is a blend of, you know, clay and mud, sand, water. It's quite cool in here because actually I worked with a team of people very committed to bioconstruction to help me build this house. And they, you know, we designed it so it's insulated and it's great. And actually we grow plants inside and outside of the house using everything we use in my home and in our home for whoever wants to join me is grown right there in our town, or if it's not grown, in our garden or our agroforest that we have behind the house. And, you know, I got to this point in my life, and we got to this point in the world where it was possible to bring communities like this together on a massive scale because of people that we got to know 10 years ago in the middle of a time where we were all feeling very isolated and alone and afraid. And the magic potion, I think, that allowed us all to join in hand to create this beautiful reality was exactly taking a few, maybe 6 months, maybe 3 months of time to experience solitude and to be as close and as intimate with nature as possible. And then also realizing the value of that community and that connection that we have in our lives. And that for us was a catalytic moment. And from CEOs of major companies to government, you know, we kind of had a revolution because I think right now the leadership, or in 2020, the leadership wasn't equipped to handle the change we wanted to bring. So, and when I say leadership, I mean, this is assuming I moved back to the United States or Brazil, or I still live in Brazil. Sorry, don't want to get political, but I will, because I'm allowed to, I guess, right? And yeah, so we live in this world that is fueled by connecting global, but acting profoundly local. And luckily we have built technologies and embraced technologies that allow us to do that in a way that is living in harmony with those around us, with nature, and be productive on a scale that is healthy for us and healthy for everyone in the world, not just being efficient and being productive for those at the top. That's me in 2030. Okay.
Maya, amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for everything you've been doing with Social Gastronomy.
I just introduced.
Yeah.
Hi, Lucian.
Who is that?
Yan Lang.
Yan Ling, can the real Lucian please stand up?
Okay, you cannot see me?
No, we can't see you yet, but
really? We have a video.
In your video, on the click the down button and select computer video, because your video is not working.
Video setting, camera. Oh, well, I guess we just do this.
You just go ahead.
Okay, so I'd just like to honor everyone's being here and celebrate this 2030. The key was to share this beautiful partner here, but the video doesn't work. But I would like to introduce Prashant and Michael here. We are working on the Global Immensity projects or systematic change project, whatever you call it. But I think Prashant and there's a generation of elders who have been going through the past 40 years from the entire this movement from this direction. So I feel that in our social elder group, there's a new category needs to be revered and acknowledged, and also carry on the torch with their real experiences. And the other thing is, second stack I would like to have shared, maybe we'll share later, is the three signs of creations, how we can live 2030 in a completely new way. That's Prashant, I would like to say, but I will, last but not least, I would just say this is wonderful, bubbly, exciting 2030. I would like to invite our just 1 minute envisioning we're reaching that evolutionary human potential leap. And our silence, our other languages will speak louder for each other. And our hunger for food will expand to hunger for curiosities and all foods in every dimensions. And that's where all the hunger can be solved also, I guess. And it's third, and then because we're living in this completely new way of designing our environments, we're designing the dooms, right? Like Kogi says, that all the four wars are for the death and the dooms are for the human and celestials. So we look at the design, look at our environment, one as totally extension of ourself. And so every act of destruction will be self-destruction to that level. We stop the harm, but at the same time, we're so in a state of one with the environment that we're going to create like a real artist, which is all the art out of wonder and nothing about self, ego-centered self. Even legacy, I found is disturbing now these days for some reason. So Prashant, could you share what your vision is? What other community we're going to live on?
Well, first of all, let me say it's wonderful to come in contact on this cyber waves with all these brothers and sisters. I should say rather children and grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Yan Lingwick, you're just muted, I believe. Is anyone else?
Yeah, we can't hear Ivor.
Getting older.
Go back.
Are we on?
Are we on now?
Back on.
Back on.
Okay. So it's been a wonderful trip to actually see this. And Yan Lin has introduced me, and we hope that we're going to carry on this 2030 conception to its ultimate reality, which is one world, one earth, and one people. So 45 years of working on this, I have seen the developments and 4 revolutions rise and fall. This one seems like the resultant factor that will change everything. I look forward to the next 10 years. Thank you.
Prashant, thank you for being such a dear elder and an example for this next generation of upstarts to follow your leadership and follow your example. Thank you so much. We really salute these great ancestors of ours that were on the front lines before, that were battling back in the, you remember in the early 2000s, people had to make a choice, like a trade-off. Either you focus on making money or you focus on having impact in the world. Like, it was crazy. So thank you so much for being on the front lines for so long. The tides changed. We started to realize the error of our ways, and we started to redefine wealth and communicate a way that was like what it meant to be a billionaire was somebody that impacted the lives of 1 billion people. This idea that people had $1 billion in their bank is crazy. Like, who needs that amount of money? So people started to
So true.
give their money to the game, and actually the billionaires became the key holders. It was great. You know, the early generation of billionaires completely funded the game so that it was the best funded experiment in human culture in the history of the planet. And so thank you, Prashant, for being there in the early days, for being at the front line. What a journey we've had.
I'm not stepping back yet.
You've got
I got some fire going here.
This is the final stretch of the last decade. Is the, you know, we're gonna take this all the way home. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And now, next, coming in from Brazil, we have Carlos Schultz, the poet, the investor, a visionary in terms of how talent and capital will transform the role of entrepreneurship. So thank you so much, Carlos, for being here. Share us from Brazil.
Thank you, Lucian. Hi, everyone. My apologies for being late, but I guess we're from the future, so I am the opposite of late. Did I understand this correctly, Lucian? Are we speaking from the future? Are we speaking from 2030 and reflecting on what went right and maybe what went wrong?
You know, Carlos is this friend. He's got this thing of like reverse Alzheimer's. He's in 2030, but for some reason he still thinks this is 2020. Yes, we're reminding you, brother. We're in the future. We're now.
Perfectly. So considering, Brazil back in the early 90s was, I believe, had the same size economy as China. And if one was to look at economic policy, Chinese economic policy then and Brazilian economic policy now or then, and what has manifested since, China is now the second biggest economy, maybe becoming #1, or by 2030, possibly. And Brazil became actually more agricultural. Brazil, in a way, went backwards. So I have been saddened by such progress or lack of progress, but it did express and manifest a wonderful opportunity. Brazil produces most of the world's food. Brazil also, during the 2000s and 2010s, adopted some of the worst agricultural practices of toxins and pesticides. So I'm very happy that it didn't take long for Brazilians to learn from their mistake and masterfully effect and adopt the best agricultural strategies, and not only at the industrial scale, but also at the lower base of economic, allowing other people to contribute to within this sphere of economic production. Thus, I am inspired by the fellow leaders in Brazil who recognized this, who looked all over the world and learned from the best, who did what was needed within the government, but also accepted government can only do so much, and effectively became an exemplary country in how we grow our food, still possibly maintaining our capacity to produce much of the world's food without hampering the Amazon in any way, and adopting the best practices of agroforestry and beyond. But in a way, we took on this responsibility, this honor of growing much of the world's food, and in doing so responsibly. And parallel to that, beyond food production, food distribution, and maybe even food production in regards to the final mix before it is eaten by people. So again, I take it in stride, or at least I'm honored or inspired by fellow Brazilians and fellow people who live in Brazil, who led this movement of teaching the world's poorest, or Brazil's poorest, how to produce the best food. It's amazing how even when money isn't an issue, it's hard to eat well. mostly because of ignorance, mostly because you don't have a private chef cooking for you all the time. But I'm not even suggesting that everyone needs private chefs, but maybe communities. Everyone needs community chefs and neighborhood chefs. And considering what COVID did to the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry, again, I'm amazed and inspired of just how quickly that industry came back with a much deeper appreciation of who makes our food and who grows our food. So I'm happy and inspired just to reflect on the incredible challenge that it was to recognize just how bad Brazil came to be in regards to adopting the worst practices and ignoring our most poorest and hungriest. But by 2030, we learned our ways.
Carlos, thank you so much. Thank you. And now as we close today, as we close this great celebration of food abundance in 2030, thank you so much, David Solomon, for everything you're doing as team captain of that first founding league on food abundance. And thank you so much, Nikki, for your leadership of social gastronomy. I'd love, Nikki, for you to say some closing words, and then we'll finish out with the oath and thank everybody for coming.
Well, thanks everyone for this beautiful contribution. I think we couldn't have had a better way of kicking off World Food Day 2020, taking us straight to 2030 with a beautiful dialogue, inspiration. And I do believe that this is the beginning of a journey that will take us all to the food abundance we want to see in the world. So on that note, thank you, Lucien, David, everyone that contributed. And this is just the very first step. So I'll see it as a beginning of something beautiful together. So thank you all. Thanks to the SGM team.
Thank
you. And everyone that got involved.
Thank you. And let's close a good tradition here of 2030. There's a very simple oath I invite you to unmute and say together as we close out and begin our weekend on World Food Day. The oath goes like this. Feel free to join me. We are the united planet.
We
are the united planet.
I am an Earth Guardian.
I
am an Earth Guardian.
On my honor.
On my honor.
I commit to a thriving civilization in harmony with all life.
I commit to a thriving civilization
with all life.
Harmony with all life.
Simple. We got our to do. There we are. Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this team. The band is truly back together. Let's create the 2030 we wish to see, because there's nothing to stop us. We are reality architects, and we can tell a better story than the one that's being told right now. And that's all it takes. Thank you so much for joining us in 2030. Have a great World Food Day.
Thank you,
Lucien.
Thank you, Lucien.
Team, Lucien, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ciao.